Hey everybody, today I want to talk about race. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 says, "So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." When I arrived at Wrightsville United Methodist Church in 2015, we had an associate pastor on staff who was African American. Her name is Edie Gleaves, and she's given me permission to share these stories with you today. She currently serves as the district superintendent for the Harbor District, overseeing 85 churches in southeast North Carolina, including our own. I wasn't intimidated at the prospect of working with an African American, but I was a little intimidated to be working with someone who had so much experience and expertise like she did. For those who don't know Edie, she's highly intelligent and well educated. She's a person of tremendous integrity. She can be compassionate and prophetic. Not only had she been a pastor for 13 years longer than I had, but she'd also worked with the General Board of Global Ministries, empowering Methodist missionaries for work around the world. She's been places. She's done things. I knew I'd be working with an extremely capable associate pastor. Proving my point about how capable she is, she has now become the North Carolina Conference's presumptive nominee for bishop when those elections take place next year. As far as the color of her skin, I thought the best thing to do would be to ignore it. We are Christian ministers who will work side by side. What difference does our skin color make? After all, isn't the kingdom of God filled with people of every hue imaginable? I will show how highly evolved I am about race by simply never bringing it up. Edie and I only worked side by side for a year before she was invited to become our district superintendent. We saw each other much less often after she took on this new role, until one day she was invited to go preach at the Sierra Leone Annual Conference in West Africa. Because of our church's work with the Methodist Hospital there in Rotofunk, our bishop suggested to Edie, "Why don't you take Doug Lane with you?" And so we went together, along with a third companion, a white woman who is the missions director for our conference. Now that we're in Africa, I am the person of a minority race. Although as a white person, I'm still treated by most Africans like I have wealth and prestige. Sierra Leone is one of the countries where people were captured, sold, enslaved, and brought to the United States. This happened for more than 200 years. And like its neighbor Liberia, Sierra Leone is largely populated today by the descendants of enslaved peoples who were sent back to Africa at the end of the British and American slave trades. One day, while Edie and I were in Africa, I don't remember precisely how or why, we got to talking about race relations in America. And I said something like, "I can't imagine how it must have been to have been the only African American on staff at Wrightsville and one of the few African Americans in the whole church." I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, "You never asked," which was really stupid of me. 6 months before I arrived at Wrightsville, Ferguson, Missouri was in the news because of major unrest and turmoil in that St. Louis suburb. The reason? A grand jury had declined to indict a white police officer for the killing of an unarmed 18-year-old African American named Michael Brown. How did Edie feel about that? I don't know. I never asked. 2 months before I arrived, Baltimore was the center of America's racial tensions when demonstrators took to the streets to protest the death of Freddie Gray, an African American who was in police custody when he died. How did Edie feel about that? I don't know. I never asked. The shooting at Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, took place the very week before I arrived at Wrightsville. Those people who died did so while they sat in their pews at church during a Bible study. That affected all of us. But those people were not targeted because they were Christian. They were targeted because of the color of their skin. Could it have possibly affected Edie in different ways than it affected me? I don't know. I never asked. On the way home from Africa, Edie, our other companion, and myself were killing time waiting for our flight. Edie and the other woman did some shopping at the duty-free store. Their bags were already packed, so they had to hold on to their purchases when they got on the plane. And when we arrived at our destination after a very long flight, I went through security easily. Our other companion, a white woman, was carrying her duty-free package with her in her hands, and she walked through security with ease as well. Then it was Edie's turn. The security guard took one look at Edie and her duty-free package and asked to see her receipt. Wait, you didn't ask our white friend for her receipt? And they bought the exact same thing. We'd been on the plane for hours. Edie didn't remember where she put her receipt. It wasn't in her pocket. She opened up her purse. There were lots of papers and receipts in there. Then the guard took Edie's bags and decided to go through all of them. Was she looking for the receipt? Did she suspect she'd stolen something? Was she looking for something else? Edie kept looking through her purse while the guard looked through all her bags. It was humiliating. No one else was being stopped, only the black-skinned woman. It was really obvious and really uncomfortable. But the guard's the one in charge here. What were we supposed to do? When Edie finally found the receipt and showed the guard, she was allowed to leave. I told her, "I'm so sorry." She said, "It happens all the time." Really? Maybe I would have known that it happened all the time, except I never asked. Over the last week, our nation has been in turmoil as people have demanded justice for the murder of George Floyd. Why are so many people so upset? Why has there been both peaceful protests and violent unrest in so many cities around the country? Why? Well, I think it's time to ask the question. Now, I'm not the right person to ask, but nearly every single one of us has one or more African American friends. Ask them what they think about what's going on. And if they don't want to talk about it, that's okay. That's their prerogative. However, if your friend does open up, just listen. And if you'd like to talk more about issues of race in America, I invite you to our next racial unity discussion. The group meets the first Tuesday of every month, which is tonight, and in July, it'll be Tuesday, July 7th. For more information, contact Leanne Bolton or Christina Turner. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. God bless you.